Hello, guys, and welcome you to the new episode of the Middlegame Madness series. And today I'm going to talk about a really important topic, and it's going to be all about the planning. Having a plan is extremely important in the chess. Yeah, there is a quote, I don't remember who said, but having a bad plan is still better than having no plan at all. And that's very true. And the reason is very simple. If you have a plan, then it will guide you to choose the right candidate moves and make you um, make a better decision at the end of the calculation of your candidates. So basically, the planning is just guidance which will show you the moves. So if it's possible, then stop thinking about simple moves because it leads to nowhere. And if you do not have a plan, just looking for some moves around that are going to lead to a totally chaos. So try to find a plan and try to stick with your plan. And today's this episode is going to be about that. I'm going to show you a game. I was a child in this game. I was playing with black. I think I was like 10 years old or something like that. So maybe the quality of the game is not the highest, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a good example um of planning. Because as a child, I think your thinking method is more pure and more clear. So I think it's going to be really easy to follow this topic through this game. So I was playing with the black pieces, d4, knight f6. By the way, my opponent was a kind of strong player. He was a candidate master. c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, bishop d3. Okay, probably today it seems a bit unnatural move, but during that day, it was 2002, the theory wasn't that developed yet. Castle, knight ge2. Okay, so my opponent developed the knight to e2 instead of f3. So what was I thinking? The reason that he developed to e2 instead of f3 must be to prepare for f4 pawn move also. So he will have a very strong center with f4, e4, d4, and c4. He will want to have this kind of 4 pawn attack, and there is a very general principle. If your opponent uh, attacks in the center, you should do something on the wings, and the opposite is also true. If your opponent plays on the wings, you should do something in the center. Knight c6, castle, and e6. As you can see, maybe it's not the best plan what I started to follow, but I really wanted to follow the principle. I really wanted to take the initiative at the queen side with a6, rook b8, b5, because this is the principle. I have to play at the wings when the opponent plays in the center. So it was a very simple principle what I try to follow. H3, um, I think it's somehow a bit unnatural. We will talk about that in the next move. Rook b8, of course, since I have a plan. I wanted to take the initiative at the queen side. So now all of my moves have to support this plan. It's really important. So this is what I'm talking in this topic, to always try to stick with your plan, stick to your plan. If you have a plan, then just follow it and try to find moves that support your plan. Otherwise, if your move doesn't support your plan, probably it's not the right move. You have to know. There are two kind of plans in the chess. If we want to keep it simple, that you can have a plan like on your own, what you want to do, and the other thing that what the opponent wants to do, and try to prevent it. So you can do two things. You can prevent your opponent plan, or you can follow your own plan. And just a small thumb rule here, if there is a move that supports your plan and prevents the opponent plan at the same time, most of the time those are the best moves what could be happen. So my opponent played f4. I was expecting that. As I said, after knight g2, I was pretty sure that he is going to play f4 one time. But normally the f4 and the h3 moves are not fit well together. And the reason is that those two pawn moves here makes the black squares weak around the opponent's king. So normally if you play f4, then this pawn should remain on h2, or if you already played h3, you have to think twice about this f4 move. And the pawn structure is extremely important. The chess, you know, the pawns are the only pieces that cannot move backward. So before you make a pawn move, you should always think twice about it, because if you weaken out something, you cannot do it back. And now it seems okay, so probably I cannot get advantage out of these weakened black squares, but you will see that later I will do that. And that's the reason that maybe for the first side something seems okay, but if you are changing the pawn structure, we are talking about a long-term thing. So in the long run, maybe it's not too wise to do that. Probably would be more logical, more natural to play bishop e3, and that would fit together with the h3 too, to prevent knight g4. So something like that would be more wise. Of course, d5s are never a thing, because after d5 there is a very nice motif, if you can call it motif, knight e5, and this bishop cannot leave the d3 square because the c4 is hanging, and this knight here prevents the bishop e2 or bishop f1, of course. So I can exchange the bishop pair after that. So d5 is not that dangerous. f4, knight b4. Still, I had a plan, I stick to that plan, and all of my moves, if you see, poorly support this plan. Knight b4, I want to dislodge the d3 bishop, because if I can dislodge the d3 bishop, I can play the b5 finally, and I can take the initiative at the queen side. And that also means my opponent's center attack will be slowing down. Bishop b1, b5, of course. If you have a plan, stick with it. d5. He wants to get some advantage out of the weakened c6 square, which makes sense, by the way. So that's, as I said, it's really important to understand how the pawn structure changes, and you have to think twice when you make a pawn move. So I had to expect that after b5, my c6 square will be weakened. I took on c4. Of course, it's a logical move, but in the other hand, the a3 was a real threat that he will capture my b4 knight. So I had to make an escape for that. I took on c4, a3, knight d3. I have a pawn up, so he has to take it. I took it back, queen d3. Okay, what did I earn with this plan that I managed to do? I was able to open the b line. It's a semi-open line. I was able to get the bishop pair. On the other hand, I have an isolated a6 pawn, which is not the best, of course. But I was, but you know, it's the pawn structural thing is a long-term advantage. So basically, I'm in a long-term disadvantage by the a6 pawn. But in the other hand, you have to always try to find the balance between the static and the dynamic things. So for the static disadvantage, I got dynamic advantage because of the bishop pair, because of the semi-open b line, and because of the next move what I will make. Still, I managed to make a breakthrough, but I still try to follow the plan. My opponent is strong in the center, so I have to play on the queen side. What do you need to play somewhere? You need pieces. So I try to relocate my knight through d7 to c5, and one more piece will join to the battle on the queen side. And on the other hand, I open up the big diagonal from my dragon bishop. And one thing what you should see, that I prevented something really important. So I prevented this kind of e5 plans, which is very typical breakthrough. After knight d7, my opponent doesn't have an e5 plan anymore. So basically I prevented my opponent plan, and I supported my own plan with this move here. So it has to be a great move. b4. Now he prevented the c5. That's smart enough. But after b4, I was able to play a5 to dislodge this pawn on b4. And if I can manage to do that, for example with an exchange, then at least I will get rid of my bad pawn structure, I will get rid of my isolated pawn, and he will have an isolated pawn on b4. Of course, I'm talking about after I exchange on b4. So if he let me do that, then at least I get rid of my positional disadvantage, or he can take it. But after that, I think knight c5, and this position is really unclear for me. Black has a huge compensation for the sacrifice material, and I'm pretty sure that this material sacrifice is just temporary, because in the worst case scenario I can make a rook e8 at the future and take it, or even a c6, and I sacrifice the c pawn for the a5, but after that I will get back the c6 easily. So here the position is open. The bishop pair needs open position. This position is going to be totally open. The bishop on a6 will come into the play. So I think it's just a huge counterplay and compensation for one pawn. So my opponent was thinking a lot, and he didn't want to accept that pawn, because that would open every kind of diagonals and files. But he probably didn't want to play rook b1 either, because after that I get rid of my positional disadvantage, and he had only one hope in this position, that he still had this positional advantage. So imagine that I keep my tactical, my dynamic advantage, but in the other hand I get rid of my static advantage, so probably black will be totally fine. So after a while he decided to go for b5 and wanted to keep the position closed, which is logical. Since I have the bishop pair, he has to keep the position closed if it's possible. But now I managed to play the knight c5 finally, queen c4. Okay, let's see what happened here. Actually, he prevented my initiative on the queen side, it seems. I'm not sure, but it seems he managed to close the queen side. But in the other hand, I also managed to prevent his initiative at the center. So now it was a change. I still have the bishop pair. What does the bishop pair need? Open position. So it's a principle. We have the bishop pair, so we need open position. So our plan is very simple. We have to open the position somehow. Okay, and now if you try to think in candidates, only moves can be candidates which support this plan. So basically, which is aimed to open the position. If the move goal is not to open the position, is not a candidate anymore. I played e6. I think it's quite logical. I try to open the position by exchanging the pawns in the center. Bishop e3, e takes d5, e takes d5. And now I managed to open some files and diagonals. Also the e file is going to be important. And then the other hand, now I equalized the static in my opinion, because now he also have a d5 isolated pawn. So now I'm not versed in the pawn structural thing. So I'm pretty sure that from here black is just better. But he was hoping, that if he can take on c5, then he can get a pawn advantage. Or if he chases this knight away from c5, then maybe my c7 pawn will be a backward pawn, and he can organize some attack against that. But okay, have a look at this position. I wanted to talk about two things, which is not really connected to this topic, but I have to mention that if he takes on c5, I think it's worth for a pawn, because the bishop pair in 90% or more always dominates the knight pair. There could be some very specific position, very closed and specific positions where the knight pair is better than the bishop pair, but in 90% you do not want to leave a knight pair against the bishop pair, because the bishop pair will be superior in really most cases. So try to avoid that. Always try to have at least one bishop, because if you have at least one bishop, you can challenge the opponent's one bishop. So it's still better than nothing, but having a knight pair against the bishop pair is usually very bad. And the other thing what I wanted to mention, that normally the knights are really good next to each other. So if the knights are next to each other, they occupy a lot of squares around, and they work together amazingly. But usually they are not very well if they are connected, because they are preventing each other from the movement, and also they can be overwhelmed by protecting each other. So it's not something really important, this other thing, but normally if it happens in your games, just try to solve this before anything bad can happen out of that. Okay, so back to the game. I still have the bishop pair. I still want to open the position, because the bishop pair needs open position. And I was really proud for this move that I made here as a 10 years old child. I think this move is still amazing. I managed to play c6 in this position with the plan to open the position, and that's the reason why I decided to choose this game for this topic, because I think this planning method, this thinking method is very, very pure by black. That a child has a plan. He wants to open the position because of the bishop pair, and he just focus on this plan and stick to this plan, and doesn't even calculate what else could happen, because he just wants to stick with that and wants to execute that. And now actually the c6 is very, very strong move, because if he takes with the d pawn, then I can play bishop e6, and that's going to be extremely uncomfortable soon, especially because knight d5 is the only move, and I think that looks horrible. The a1 is hanging already. This knight is in a pin. In the worst case, I can also then take on a1, then take on b5 or something like that. So I will have a material advantage. Or if he doesn't take, then I will take somewhere. I'm not sure where, but for example, after bishop c5, I think I can take on b5, knight b5, and in the worst case, I can take on c5, and I think white's position is hopeless. The position is totally open, and he has a knight pair against the bishop pair. But probably bishop a6 is also interesting too. It's a nice intermezzo, and after that I will take back on c5. But probably taking the a1 rook is not the best, but I think it should be considered. So my opponent took on c6 with the b pawn, but after that bishop a6. could come out. And now look at my bishops, they are just dominating the whole board. Queen e2 is the only place. Bishop e2, knight e2, bishop a1. It's important to note something here. If it's your first of my videos, then it's going to be a bit difficult to understand. If you are following my videos, then you will know what I mean. So if you have tactical, or we can call dynamical advantage, like we have the bishop pair here, the goal, the aim is always to convert it into long-term positional advantages, because the dynamic advantage is always temporary, and if it's possible, we have to convert it into permanent long-term positional advantage. So after bishop e2, knight e2, bishop a1, rook e1, I converted my bishop pair advantage into material advantage. The bishop pair advantage was temporary. The material advantage is a positional permanent advantage. So if it's possible and the opponent doesn't have enough compensation or counterplay after that, you always should go for it. Rook e8, very, very simple move. The last piece joins to the battle. Bishop f2. I'm not sure if it's better to take on c5. I think it's logical, but in the other hand, after that, the pawn seems dangerous, but in my opinion, they are just going to be weak, and somehow I will hunt them. So probably that's why he wanted to keep the bishop on the board and focus on the protected c6 pass pawn. But of course, if he didn't take it, I will leave the c5 square with the knight, knight d3. And it's not just that the bishop on f2 is hanging, but also the rook b2 is going to be an extremely strong threat. Bishop d4 he played, queen e7. Now it's a very simple move once again. If the knight leaves the e2, for example, to c3, then I can penetrate to the second rank by rook g3. Knight g3 is possible, but I think it's totally out of the game. So maybe queen h4 is already winning with a double attack or something like that, or h4, h5, h4 plan. My opponent played king f1 and wanted to protect the et2 knight, but now we have a nice tactical motif here. Rook b2 is very strong. Bishop b2 basically only move. Queen e2, king g1, queen f2, king h1, and unfortunately I didn't play the best continuation here, because rook e1 of course is a very easy win, because if he takes, I take back with the knight, and the game is just over, because the g2 checkmate is not possible to prevent. I played knight f4, and after bishop e5 he had this bishop e5 move, but fortunately still not enough for him to survive. But of course rook e1 was more easy. Unfortunately I didn't realize that, and here I managed to win the game after a few moves. Okay, so the thing is, what you can learn from this video, then you should always have a plan. I have to repeat myself once again, you should always have a plan, because if you have a plan, your plan will show you the moves. If your move doesn't support your plan, then it shouldn't be a candidate move. It's simple like that. And if you have a plan, even if it's not the best plan, even if it's not the most correct plan, or there could be something better, it's still better to have a bad plan than have no plan at all, because of the reason what I was talking about previously. And if you have a plan, it's really important, extremely important, to stick with it. Stick to your plan, and don't try to make moves everywhere around the board. If you have a plan, just follow it and try to execute it. I hope you enjoyed this video today and see you soon. Take care. Bye.